Shine On Part 6 through 9 is one of Pink Floyd's most underrated and overlooked songs. There's a lot to talk about here, but let's begin with the sounds. The very first sound you hear is a wind sound. In this case, I'm using a synthetic wind patch. I made this sound using a mini Moog, and basically I'm not using any of the oscillators. I'm just using the noise generator. The noise is fed to the filter. The filter is attached to the keyboard by these two keyboard controls buttons here. It's actually using only one. And we have a lot of glide, so that as we glide, the filter opens to the right and closes to the left. This way you have a manual control of the wind sound. Then we hear the bass going doop doop, very low G notes, a few times doop doop. And then we hear the Solina string machine. Fun trivia, the Solina is famously known as the ARP Solina, but it was actually made by a company called Eminent. It was only distributed in the US by ARP, but it became known as the ARP Solina. It's a wonderful string machine from the 70s, and Wish You Were Here and Animals are absolutely filled with Solinas, okay? Then after this, we have the notorious mini Moog sound. Now, it absolutely needs the delay because of this. And it's very close to the rest of the Shine On Moog sounds, like the horn kind sounds, the brassy Moogs. It's a little bit brighter, a little bit more processed. The delay plays a huge role in this sound. Now, there's one very important detail about the sound, which is the bend range. If you open this side menu here, you have pitch bend range. Usually it's set to 2 because that's a whole tone, but you need to play these bends here. And so you have to set it to 1. If you set it to 2, it's probably gonna sound bad. It sounds good from F to G because that's a bend from the 7th to the octave. But if you try doing this, it's not gonna sound right. So if you make such a patch, make sure to set your pitch bend range to 1 semitone, okay? Now part 6 is this introduction, the Solina, the Moog, and then the guitar solo. During the guitar solo we have a Hammond sound. Technically it's still part 6, but I left the Hammond sound here on my part 7 patch. And this is a Arturia B3 version 2. Let me just show you the Hammond. And it goes on G minor chord for a very long time. You do have a few different chords there. If you want to learn how to play the song, watch my tutorial. This is actually somewhat of a part 2 of the tutorial video. And then there's the same Solina on top. Rick Wright probably recorded each of these tracks separately and then overdubs them onto the master keyboard tape, let's call it. And there are actually a few Moog highlights along with this part going. So it would be best if we had 3 hands so that we could play the Hammond, the Solina, and the highlights. But it's up to you how much you want to switch hands, what you want to play and what you don't want to play. So part 7 is the sung part. After the guitar solo, we go back to the lyrics where it resembles the most parts 1 through 5. We got the same chords. And that's it. Now part 8, that's the funky part. For this part we have, first of all, a Rhodes, which used to be called Fender Rhodes, but it's not Fender anymore, it's just Rhodes electric piano. And Rick's playing fourths here. This is a fourth interval between A and D, and also between D and G. So because the bass is going, you can think of this as a G add 9, because we have a G, the fifth, the tonic, and then the ninth here. You can't just call it a G9, because if you just say G9, it implies that you are playing the seventh. So a G minor 9 would be this. If you call it add 9, it means you aren't playing the seventh. So technically it's not a G minor because we aren't playing the minor third here, but the Shine On You Crazy Diamond is a G minor song, but you can call it whatever you like. I like to think of this as a G minor add 9. And then we have, you can think of this as an F because it's the same shape, just moving left. This could be an F add 9, but it also works as a G if you think about it. We have the tonic, the fourth, and the 7. So you can call it a G minor 7 sus4. I don't know, it's up to you. And then we have the bluesy lick. So I'm using 3 fingers here, thumb, index, and middle finger, and pinky on the 7th. And this is the same shape, so fourths. And then to end, just play a G minor, but like roll it. After this, you have to quickly move to the left to your clavinet. Now this is one of the few uses of the clavinet that Rick Wright used. One of the few uses that Rick Wright used, that's right. One of the few uses that Rick Wright ever made of the clavinet. And this is Clavinet V by Arturia. It does give me a vibe of older Arturia plugins because it has these pedals here and the amp. But I don't think it needs an update, it sounds great. So just make sure you don't make the mistake of saving space and not using this octave. Let's say you want only one octave of the clavinet and you try playing something like, but the first note needs to be this low G here. It has girth, weight. And that's the clavi sound. After this, we have a very gorgeous soaring Moog lead. And while you're playing this, the guitar is going to be playing like the funky chords. Because the song is very much overdubbed, we have many tracks, many highlights, many added things, and I can definitely hear a few guitar slides recorded on top of it. Harmonious notes to what he's playing here. But if you play in a band with only one guitarist, he's probably just going to be playing the funky chords. So it's up to you to play this melody many, many times. Alright? Hey man, I was just editing the video here, and you know what I just remembered? That you have to subscribe to the channel right now. Do it! Subscribe. Subscribe now. Now the transition between parts 8 and 9 is the trickiest part. And you have to talk to your band about this, and you're going to have to rehearse this many times, because during this funky part, you guys are going to stay at a very nice dynamic for a long time, and then the transition has to be as smooth as possible. So I made a separate patch here just for the transition, because here on this patch we have the Rhodes, the clavinet, the Moog, and the Solina, because we also play the same line. But then later, the next patch, I have the Moog on the right, but in the bottom I have a synth pad, and in the left I have samples. Before I explain the samples, I just want to show you the transition. So what I like to do, and what I recommend that you do, is have 2 faders, one for the volume of the synth pad and one for the volume of the Moog. So save your concert with the volume of the Moog the same as in the previous patch, so that it's the same, and you're gonna keep playing this many times, so you have time to move to the next patch, keep playing the Moog, double check to see if the faders are in position, right? The synth pad has to be at a 0 volume, keep playing the Moog, and then once you feel ready, you move down to your bottom keyboard, play a G minor chord on your synth pad, hold it with your sustain pedal, let go of it. Now there's a G minor chord hidden behind this fader here, and I can show you here really quick. But I'm still going to be playing this. The dynamic of the band's still going to be going straight. Now look at your band members, make sure that everybody is in the same dynamic, and as the dynamic slowly goes down, you fade down the volume of the Moog along with the band. And once you feel the right time comes, you start fading in the synth pad, and you slowly switch between the volume of the synth pad and the Moog. Whoops, did you hear those jumps? That's dirt in my fader. Be careful with that. Now, along with this, we have now what's that sound? That's a mini Moog overdub. Like I said, many overdubs, many different tracks, many added things, many spices on top of this song. And this is a Moog sound. Rick Wright probably did this filter movement manually, so like just a regular Moog sound with a tiny bit of vibrato, and then slowly open up the filter and close down the filter. This is a D note, by the way. But because the Mini Moog is a monophonic instrument and you can hear a few different notes, and you can tell that these are overdubs, each of these tracks, each of these Moog highlights was overdubbed separately. What I did is I sampled my Moog sound and I put it in the main stage multi-sampler. This way I have many notes that I can play with the same Moog sound, and I panned each one differently so that I can hear more separation between the notes, and then I can use these as much as I want during this transition and during part 9, during the solo. So let me just play D. Now I'm going to play an entire 4 notes G minor chord here. if you play one note after the other, not all at the same time. So yeah, basically what I did, the same as I am recording here with main stage using this record button. I had one channel strip for the Moog, I set it to record, and then I played only one note, let's say D, and then but I did it one note at a time, and you can see all notes here. This is in E, I started on E, and I played E, F, G, A, B, C, D, so on and so forth. You can see that there are a few notes that are stretched here, but in case you are wondering, why didn't you just record once the sample, and then you can just stretch it across all of the notes that you want. But when you do this, the pitch is going to be adapted to all the different notes, and this means that the speed of the vibrato is going to change, and usually this distorts the sound a little bit, and I don't want that to happen so much. So the maximum tolerance I have for this is one semitone. So I recorded E, I recorded F, but for F sharp, I wasn't going to record all black notes because I didn't want all the chromatic tones. So the F sharp is the same sample from the F, but it's a tiny bit stretched. This is not going to change so much the speed of the vibrato. So this was my F recording. And this is an F sharp, which is the same sample but pitched up. Okay, and you can see like my master sample beneath here. In case you are wondering why I have only one big sample and I didn't record separate samples, this is an easier way to do it. I set it to record, I recorded one note at a time in the same file, and then I opened the multi-sampler, I loaded the file here, and then I can just do, for example, click it, Command C, put it here, Command V, put it here, Command V, repeat the process, and then all you have to do is specify the region for the specific sample that you want. Just make sure you don't put the right notes in the right keys. You know, you press a D key and you hear an F sharp. You get the idea. So let me just Command Z. Oh, if I Command Z, I'm going to. Anyway, I took out my Fender Rhodes sound, but we are done with part 8. So that's what I did for the samples. The same samples I'm using here and I'm using on part 9. The transition is the trickiest part, but once we get to part 9, we have the melody. This is the ethereal part. The melody is definitely the priority. This is a horn sound, a horn Moog lead. I actually have a tutorial on how to make this sound here in the channel. When I recorded that, it was still Mini V3. Now I'm using Mini V4, but it's basically the same to recreate the sound, okay? Now, many different layers here. First, we hear the G minor chord on the synth pad, which is the same sound from the intro of part 1, you know, that very gorgeous G minor sound. Then we hear the sound of the drums, and then we start playing the melody. But along with the melody, we have Rick playing the piano. Again, he played all of these separately. He recorded the piano, he recorded the synth pad, he recorded the Moog highlights, and the melody. But how can we play it being only one person? How can we play all of these layers? There is actually a workaround for you to be able to play all 4 layers. Namely, the piano, the synth pad, the melody Moog, and the Moog highlights, okay? What I did here is I'm using chord trigger. Chord trigger is a main stage MIDI effects that we can use to make only one key trigger an entire chord, all right? Let me just show you what it sounds like before I explain all of it. Can you figure out what's happening here? So Moog for the melody on the right. Samples here. And in the bottom, piano and synth pad. And I'm only playing one key but triggering the entire chord. Now let me show you. First, I'm going to take out this chord trigger here, and this is what I have programmed on the chord trigger. These are the input keys, the keys that I am triggering, and this is the chords that I'm actually playing. So if I play G, I have a full G minor chord, an octave on the left hand, tonic third, fifth octave, okay? Whoops. Then B flat minor, octave on the left hand, fifth, tonic, minor third, fifth, F minor, so on and so forth. Now let me just do clear this one, clear this one, clear this one, clear this, this, okay? Now, very importantly, you have a bass player. What I did here is I programmed full chords with octaves on my left hand. But there's no need to do this because you have a bass player and the bass player should occupy that space, the low end. So stay out of your bass player's territory. What I recommend everybody to do is if you're going to use chord trigger to play the piano and synth pad, just do your right hand. Like tonic, third, fifth, and maybe octave higher up. But don't record the low notes. The one exception is the very last chord, which is the G major. You're gonna need to play, let me just disable chord trigger. You're gonna need to play, because that's the ending of the song. Your bass player is gonna play the last G, and when that note rings out, you're gonna have to occupy the space while you are playing. If you leave just the right hand here, it's gonna sound a little bit thin, especially if you have like a really nice sound system with subs. Anyway, let me show you how to do the chord trigger setup. So first of all, open the MIDI effects chord trigger, right? You have a channel strip here, the piano. Open MIDI effects and choose chord trigger. And then here we have single and multi. Single is for the same chord on all notes. So if you program a chord, any key that you play is gonna play the same chord. But because we want different chords, we can choose multi. Now, there are two pre-programmed chords here. If you hit clear, you can either click this assignment and it will go away, or you can hit clear and play the notes. It will also go away. So, what note is it? Clear. It's a B note here. Yes. So for clear, you can just hit clear, play the notes, clear, play the notes. You will clear out all previously made assignments. But to learn, this is a very simple process. You don't need to go into learn mode, learn one chord, get out of learn mode, go back into learn mode, learn the other chord. You can do it all at once. So click once, you are now in learn mode, okay? It won't come out of learn mode until you click this. Now, the first note you play is going to be selected as an input key, a trigger key. So I'm going to press G. It's now marked in red here as an input key. The last thing I did is I pressed G. I didn't do anything yet. Now I don't have to click select chord. All I have to do is play the chords and it will already be assigned. So let me play, for example, G minor here. The velocity doesn't matter because the velocity that is going to be applied is the one that you apply when you are playing, right? So even if you play very loudly once you are doing the assignments, after you get out of learn mode, if you play softly, you are going to hear a soft chord, okay? So the order of the chords are G minor, and then we have a B flat minor. So I'm gonna play B flat, play the B flat minor chord. Next, F minor, so play F to select the trigger note. Now the chord. Now here's the tricky part. The bass is playing a few different notes. The bass is walking around, he plays some sevenths. He plays the seventh on the F minor, and then once he goes to C minor, he goes down to the sixth on the bass and then to the fifth. Let me just show you really quick before we finish the chords. I'm going to get out of learn mode, disable chord trigger, and just show you what the bass is doing. First, disable the synth pad. Just the piano I want. Still on a tonic. So he plays a seventh here, and then comes back to the tonic. Now C minor, tonic. He plays this chromatic run from C down to A. The A is the sixth. Technically, this is an A half diminished chord, but you shouldn't think of it as an A half diminished. It's just the bass is going down to the sixth and then to the fifth. So he plays. D major. The bass actually does. So again, G minor, bass on a tonic. B flat minor, bass on a tonic. F minor, bass on a tonic. Now bass on the seventh. Back to the tonic. C minor, bass on a tonic. Now chromatic run. Fifth. D major. Alright, that's the idea. Now, if you program the chords by timing, you have G minor, B flat minor, F minor, what would be the next chord? If you program the full chord with your left hand and the bass comes up to the seventh, it can clash. You are occupying the bass player's space. So I just taught you what the bass player is doing. If you want, you can program these chords as first F minor, then F minor with the bass on the 7, then you do C minor, then C minor with the bass on the 6th, then C minor with the bass on the 5th, then D major, and G major. Okay, what I recommend you do is don't program all of these chords. Just program these triads. G minor, B flat minor, F minor, then the F minor again. You just trigger the same chord. Then C minor, then C minor again. The bass player is going to be playing 6th and the 5th. And then D major, and then G major. So let's keep going here on the chord trigger. What we have programmed so far is G minor. But I told you, don't play the bass notes. So again, I'm going to go clear, press G, clear, press F, clear, press B flat. These are the chords you should program. Go learn, hit G, play a G minor. B flat minor. F, F minor. C, C minor, D, D major, and the higher G, G major. All right, now get out of learn mode, and now you have all chords. Bass on the 7th. Bass going down to the 6th, the 5th, and then in the end, the very last chord, the G major. But like I told you, the G major should have the bass notes. So I'm gonna go clear, play the upper G. Oh, I hit learn, but let me just program it again. I don't think I even need to do clear. I just played G, and I'm gonna play... Oh, it deleted those notes. So again, let me go clear, G major, learn, this upper G, G major chord. That's what we want. But this is for the piano. How can you do this for the synth pad as well? Where you can program everything from scratch again, or you can just copy this effect. How do you do this? Just hit copy here in the top, open a chord trigger on the synth pad channel strip, hit paste, and you have the same assignment. The only problem in this case here is that the piano is -12, it's transposed 1 octave down, and the synth pad is in the regular octave. So it's probably going to be the wrong octave here. Yes, we are hearing a G minor and a G major at the same time, because you see how the lower G was a G minor and the upper G was a G major. So the piano is playing G minor, but the synth pad is playing G major. Very bad dissonance. So the way to fix this is to open this here and move the trigger keys 1 octave up. So you can bring everything here. Where was it? Here? Yes. Sounds right. So that's it. If you just want to fix because everything was wrong, all you have to do is move your trigger keys 1 octave higher, and it will compensate for the transpose that we had beneath it. Okay? I don't know if you're confused by this. I hope not. But this is the best way I can explain. So this is how you can play all 4 layers: piano, synth pad, Moog, and Moog highlight samples. Okay? Okay, and the last chord. I think that's all. We covered all sounds. We covered how to create a multi-sample for the Moog highlights. This is very useful if you are only one keyboardist, especially for Pink Floyd, because Pink Floyd has a lot of additional things, you know, highlights, these added tracks, these overdubs. And if you have the right sounds, but you don't have 4 hands, you can sample yourself playing and then just quickly trigger these samples by going one shot. You know, one shot is when you have a sample and you don't need to hold down the note so that you hear the entire sample. You can just tap like this. I can just tap F and I hear the entire sample. You can do this for many different songs, but this is for Shine On, part 6 through 9, okay? And we covered the chord triggers, which is a workaround where you can play the harmony for yourself so that you can play the melody and hear a very full sound, like this. Free left hand because I'm holding the chord with my sustain pedal, okay? So I think that's all. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel if you aren't subscribed already. I'll see you in the next video. Maybe think about watching that one.